Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It is a pleasure to warmly welcome you to this webinar organized by the Ministry of Public Education as part of the Continuing Education Program for Primary and Secondary Educational Staff Night Program, taking place at the beginning of the academic year in February 2026. We greatly appreciate your participation this evening. This professional development space has been designed to strengthen the educational practice, address needs identified in everyday teaching context, and support a solid start to the school year, both in terms of institutional management and students' learning. We hope you find this session useful, relevant, and enriching for your professional work. The title of today's webinar is Strategies for Interaction and Oral Production in the English Classroom. This session of today's webinar is aimed at primary and secondary English teaching night program from the Ministry of Public Education. Before we begin, allow me to briefly share the purpose of this session. This webinar, as I said earlier, aims to strengthen pedagogical mediation and curricular implementation in the English subject area at the primary and secondary levels, night program through professional development activities articulated around strategic thematic axes. Therefore, these activities are oriented toward 1, the development of students' oral communicative competence, 2, meaningful interaction, and 3, the design of authentic communicative tasks, all supported by the pedagogical use of emerging technologies and assessment for learning in order to contribute to the development of English language competencies within the curriculum educational system. This is Max Arias, Regional English Advisor from the Liberia Regional Education Office, who will be serving as the moderator for tonight's webinar. At this moment, we kindly asked all the participants to please complete the attendance register, which is already available in the chat. Let me briefly outline how tonight's session will unfold. We will begin with the main presentation entitled Strategies for Interaction and Oral Production in the English Classroom. And finally, we will conclude with a space for participants to share comments and reflections through the chat. To continue with tonight's webinar, we will now hand over to our specialist. But before this, it is our pleasure to welcome Manuel Gamboa. Manuel Gamboa is a specialist invited for this session, and he joined us from Mexico. Manuel Gamboa is a certified coach in humanistic organizational coaching and ontological coaching, accredited by the Secretariat of Public Education of Mexico. He serves as a university professor in human resources, marketing, administration, and English across technical, undergraduate, master, and doctoral programs, and as a corporate instructor in business and soft skills development. With 35 years of professional experience, he has held executive and managerial positions in recognized organizations, leading initiative in training, organizational development, regional expansion, and talent development. He has participated as the speaker in public and private institutions in Costa Rica, Panama, and Mexico. His academic background includes doctorate in education, postgraduate studies in English-Spanish translation, a master's degree in English language teaching and strategic management, and an MBA with an emphasis in human resources management. as well as undergraduate and licentiate degree in English teaching. He's currently completing studies in psychology and pursuing a doctorate in business administration. Manuel, thank you very much for being with us today. You may begin.
Thank you, Max, for this introduction. It's an honor for me to be here and share some experiences. I wouldn't say learnings. It's just a reflection that I want to share with you, all teachers, dear professors, teachers, all those who are there to serve students and build knowledge and other skills that they need, right? It's not only English. I'm sure there are other things that you all build every single day when you go and teach in such a nice way that I'm sure you do. All right. Okay. So just to continue, who am I? Who am I? Right. I'm a student. Why do I say that I'm a student? It's because it's true. I mean, I'm a student. Yes, I got a degree in English and business and all that, and things that I've been working on along my life, but I'm still a student. I'm starting a new program in a couple of months in translation, something that I really like. I mean, after graduating, I started loving translation. I've been taking some courses. I don't know how, I mean, why, but the thing is, that is a field that I found gives me the chance to continue growing, acquiring vocabulary, in technical fields and all that. But I'm also studying, I'm finishing my psychology major, and I'm also studying another PhD program in business because I work in both schools at the university in English and business too, right? Those are my, I would say, hobbies, interests, studying, listening to music. But now it's time to go on with such a nice topic that I was assigned to develop and share. I mean, I'm not the expert, but I am the one who comes here to ask questions, which is kind of something that I really love to do because through questions, we all learn, right? So that's Manuel. I'm a student. Besides working as a professor at the university in both countries, I do it in Mexico, the country where I live, and I also do it in Costa Rica, thanks to this um, great tool that we all have, which is technology today, right? So, why do I say that I am a student? Because I am a learner, because, sorry, let me just go here. Because I think that when we make questions, we can all reflect and grow, right? So today I come with many questions, right? When I ask, I learn, and when we reflect together, we all learn. So be ready. Maybe we'll not be able to answer them now in front of me, but I hope you go to bed and you keep learning because you know that the learning processes gets consolidated when we go to bed. So that's part of it. But I have many questions. What's my objective on this? That I want you to reflect, keep learning. Maybe tomorrow when you're going to school, you keep reflecting and brainstorming on how we can keep working and improving our professional performance, right? So be ready because I read questions. That's something that I like to do when I teach because I'm not the expert, right? I am not here. I am not the owner of the truth. But I guess if we ask questions, we will all be able to reflect and learn or share knowledge, or maybe tomorrow you go to school and you share this content with your colleagues, and then you will get to conclusions easily and keep growing as a community, right? So questions don't just seek answers, but they provide valuable information. It says that the right question doesn't give information, it transforms understanding. It also deepens I mean, learning depends not only with answers, but with those questions that challenge how we think, right? In fact, I have questions for you today, and you will see them along the presentation and also at the end, just to keep learning and reflecting. Okay, what is the topic today? Today, we're going to talk about strategies for oral interaction, scaffolding, modeling, and feedback, all right? But let's go and understand the topic. What is it? Because we can see strategies for oral interaction. Maybe if we go and start brainstorming and analyzing and providing comments or ideas on each of the words, it could take us a month, right? We go, what is strategy? What is oral interaction? And what is modeling and feedback? So before going to the content that I prepare and I want to share, let's go and understand from the basics. I mean, what the meaning of this webinar is. All right. When we go to strategy in education, it has to do with what's planned, a set of actions that a teacher uses to support learning and help students achieve specific educational objectives, right? It has to do with that way we're going to do something, but it has to be planned, right? I'm not improvising. It's not just to go and improvise. Sometimes I know we'll have to do it, right? Because we'll have time or resources or whatever, but those are like the exceptions, right? A strategy has to do with something that's planned, actions that a teacher uses to support, to have additional resources, to know where we are, what we're doing, and it gives us, I mean, we feel safe when we plan, right? I guess we'll have been teaching without a plan, and that's terrible. That's from my experience. So strategy has to do with that. It guides how content is taught, how students engage in learning tasks, and how learning is facilitated and assessed, right? So that's the first thing that we will be talking about, strategies. And then let's go to oral interaction, right? Because we all deal or speak about communication, or students register for a course because they're interested in speaking. What's the main reason for some people, or most of them, in terms of using the language? Why do people register for an English class? Not only at the Ministerio de Educación Pública, but in many places. What are they anxious about? They are anxious about speaking, which is one of the skills that we will be talking about today. Of course, writing deserves its own merit, and also listening, which improves a lot of speaking and vocabulary. It provides information for professional growth, but speaking will be the topic today. So I just want to go over the definition, because before starting, let's go and brainstorm on what the topic is. We already talked about strategies, plan things that have to be set to go and teach, let's say that in an easy way. And oral interaction is the process in which two or more people use spoken language to communicate meaning through listening and speaking in a reciprocal way, right? It involves not only producing speech, but also responding, negotiating meaning, asking questions, clarifying ideas, adapting language based on the listener's reactions, emotions, right? Gestures, silence, because silence is a way of we communicate through silence too. Sometimes we have nothing to say, but it's not that I don't know. It's that I just want to send a message by not answering something that I have been asked, right? So those are interesting things that have to do with oral interaction, right? And then we go to scaffolding, which means that we need to provide temporary help to students so that they can learn something step by step, right? This is crucial because that's the first step. I mean, sometimes you know that sometimes there are students who are willing to produce, willing to speak, willing to read, willing to write, but they don't have the necessary help at the beginning, which is something that we all need in, I mean, in any field. We just get a job, and then we need somebody to give us some support about the process or whatever. But in terms of learning, that's one of the, I would say, that's part of our mission, to work on this. And that's what a teacher gives to students, to give ideas, hints, and then later the student does the same activity without hints, right? That's the crucial first help that the student receives from us, right? And that might be so crucial that a student might even fall in love with the language. I will tell you a little bit about that later, based on what the teacher does at the beginning. So after going through the meaning of this presentation that involves these concepts, and if you go back, it says strategies for oral interaction, I'm here to share some, I would say, recommendations, I would say comments on these marvelous, I would say, continuous improvement process that we all teachers have. It's not only just getting the degree and putting it in the wall. That's just the beginning, because this is an endless process that we all have to think about as teachers, but I would say as students, because a teacher is simultaneously a student. There's no way, at least from my perspective, that I could consider a teacher who knows everything, not even in languages or in any other field. So this is what's the nice thing about this, that this is the door when we graduate. That's the door that we should have as a commitment for personal and professional growth, specifically in terms of the language, right? Okay, and feedback is when the teacher tells the student what they did well and what they can improve. What kind of feedback do we provide, right? That's a great tool to make people, I would say, happier, or to have them feel down based on what I share. Remember, I'm the teacher, one more in the class, but that's not necessarily the way the student sees this teacher, right? Maybe the student sees the teacher as the authority, the one who knows, or the one who speaks perfectly, which is something not necessarily true. I mean, you know that we all make mistakes, which is a great tool, but that's what we know, right? But that's not necessarily what the student might think, or the way the way the student sees us, right? So that's why feedback is so important. So the teacher says, good job using full sentences. Next time, check your spelling, right? And why does it say Josue, right? Let me tell you what that keyword means. I just included that word because there's somebody that I admire here in Mexico, the country where I live. Well, I'm Costa Rican, but I came to Mexico, and I'm here. I'm a permanent resident in Mexico. I'm becoming Mexican now. So who is Josue? Why that word? I didn't want to write the whole thing, but I just mentioned Josue as a hint to make me remember what he taught me. I will never forget him in terms of what, in a simple phrase, what we can all do in terms of supporting, providing feedback, but more than feedback, motivating students to see themselves as a possibility of growth, right? How does it work, right? He taught me some classes in other things like certifications in teaching and coaching and all that. But why do I remember him? Do I still remember him? What did he teach me that in my case, it's worked, right? Okay, doesn't matter the grade the student gets, right? It can be 1, 2, 0, 70, right? And the passing grade might be 70, right? The thing is the way you deliver the grade or the result, right? There are two possibilities, right? I can return the grade back to student and tell him, okay, let's see, I don't know, you need to do something, right? Because the passing grade is 70 and you got 50, right? That's okay. I mean, that's normal. That's something that we evolve down, I guess. But the thing is, there might be another way in which a nice practice that and it works, right? I can give the student the same 50, and if he didn't study, that's the one that we need to respect, right? But the thing is, we could accompany this grade by saying, hey, you know what? For now, you got 50, but you have all the chances to go and improve this and make it and keep growing. You know what? The impact that we provide and that we cause on the student's mind could be such a success that the student might go back and reflect, yeah, that's the 50 that I got. Maybe he's or she's not as happy as someone who gets 100, but that phrase, for now, could cause a great impact on how the student might react in terms of uh, doing it better next time, improving next class, and telling other people that he's able and capable of getting 100, and maybe he might get 100 next class, right? So that's the way that's the reason for having this marvelous word that in my case, it reminds me to keep giving feedback in such a respectful way, because we don't know the reason for which the student got a 50. I mean, it was maybe a circumstance that he didn't have control of. So, but that student who got a 50 today might have the chance to get 100 tomorrow. All right. So that's why I wrote that name, and that name, in my case, it has a great and an awesome value in terms of what it implies. Just remember to tell students for now, and the student might go and keep growing because that might become a motivational issue to keep working. All right, now let's reflect and develop our own objective diagnosis, becoming aware of where we are today and how this session can support our ongoing professional growth, right? We as teachers, because I'm included, I'm one more of the students and one more of the teachers. I'm not the expert because I'm leading this session. I'm just a facilitator to build knowledge through reflection as a group, all right? So when you think about your own English classes as a student, what made you feel safe or unsafe to speak, right? I'm just going to go through some basic questions to start. As I told you, I have questions for you. And if you don't have the answer, in this case for me, you will have it for you and your personal growth and your classmates and the rest of the people you live with, right? In terms of education, of this educational field, right? So when you think about your English classes as a student, what made you feel safe or unsafe to speak? We all took courses, right? And we all felt, I don't know, embarrassed or shy, but when it happened, how did you feel when you had to speak? That is exactly the same things that students today might feel when they have you in front of the class. I hope you can go and have even different physical positions. We can go and organize a circle. There are different ways of teaching now when I see myself as a leader in the class, because a leader is not only here like the one who knows and the ones who are just learning. Sometimes they know more than we do, right? When they take out the phone and they say, teacher, you know what? Yeah, it's butter, but they say butter, and that's yeah, because I found it online, and they do that, they say that in London right now. Remember that we have a different world, right? A connected world where we have now different accents, pronunciations, tools. So students know, and they sometimes go faster to the information they need than we do, right? So, but how did you feel by that time? It's just a question. And how do you think your students feel now? Another great name. It's the second name that I have. I brought Josue and I brought Roxana Jimenez. Instead of writing something about how did I learn English or why do I like English, how or why did I fall in love with the language, I still remember this name, right? And this was a blessing for me. Let me just go really fast with the story, right? And see what an impact we can cause on students' minds when we do. I don't even think that we should do perfect things, that we're not necessarily the ones who do perfect things, right? I don't believe in that. But when we do things differently and in the terms of speaking, what we can cause on students' minds, right? Roxana Jimenez, it was 1983, I guess. My father passed away when I was a kid, right? Almost a teen. I had some trouble, the things that a teenager faces uh, when someone, like in this case, passes away. So I failed my first grade at Liceo Rodrigo Facio. And I went to Liceo Costa Rica in 1983, right? I guess I always wanted to be a teacher. That's something that I later discovered. But then Roxana Jimenez, you know why I still remember her? I've had many teachers and professors, and some of them are still here. I guess they are all here, but the ones that are really significant in my case, why are they here and why the brain have them in a specific place, right? Or position. When I went back to, when I went to Liceo Costa Rica, seventh grade in a public school, my previous experience at the previous high school, it was like English and Spanish. So imagine what my mind thought. I thought that the teacher didn't know English because it was almost in Spanish. So I wonder, like, does she know English? And I used to go around the classrooms and I saw the ones who were teaching 11th grade. And I thought, right? Imagine my poor thinking in that moment. Well, the one who's teaching 11th grade, she does know English. And maybe if I bring an American, she will be able to deal with the conversation. And she does speak and she knows. But if we take the American to my teacher, maybe she won't be able to speak because she teaches English and Spanish, right? Okay. something that I guess we've got. I mean, it's something that we don't do now, I guess. But see the chances that a teacher had to use Spanish or English. What was the class about? English, right? So it was my first perception. I went to Liceo Costa Rica, and many years later, today, I'm 57, and I still remember Roxana Jimenez. Who was Roxana Jimenez? Who is? I hope she's still alive, right? That was the class that marked my, I would say, my decision to get into this world, right? That's the one who made me love the language. But I fell in love with the language with just simple actions, right? She didn't have the internet, she didn't have any additional resources or a television set or anything like that. The only thing she did in class was that she spoke in English and she took some notes, and I went around her desk and I saw that she was writing her daily notes in English. You know what? Listen to her speaking English made me think about the possibility of going somewhere. And the first school that I attended was a small school, a pre-pro school near La Caja del Seguro, and then I went to Centro Cultural and the other schools, right? But who caused that? Roxana Jimenez. What was her merit? She just spoke English in an English class, right? So I'm still here. I'm teaching. Tomorrow morning I have classes. I'm still dealing with the language. I'm taking my a second degree in translation. I connect to radio stations, business radio stations. I have them here. I love it. I mean, who did it? Roxana Jimenez. That's why instead of telling the story in written, or ask you who caused this, and the question is, would we all become Roxana Jimenez in a way with our students? If someone observed your class today, what did they notice first? Teacher talk or student voices? Just questions, right? Later on, we will go to content and then to final reflections, which is my objective today, as I said, right? What emotions do you think your students most often associate with speaking English? Curiosity, fear, confidence, or pressure, and why? All right. They might, associate them all, right? They might all be present, but the reason is why uh, there might be additional reasons. I mean, maybe natural characteristics or personality or whatever makes somebody have fear in class or come. But the thing is, we need to know this. We're not psychologists, but we need to understand that this is a human process. It's not only an academic process. Open your book on page 21, and then I cover the first page for the first partial exam. No, I mean, it has to do with different things, because by the time we involve emotions, it has to do with something else. Human beings among human beings learning and growing. And that's something that we all need to have, clear, I guess. What is one speaking activity you use often, but are no longer sure it truly promotes interaction? Is it just the basic dialogue that we have? And you know what? When I check this information and prepare this presentation, it not only work in terms of what I am providing you today, but in terms of my self-reflection. And it made me reflect again. Am I going over the same repetitive activity that I usually have? Like, okay, going first, go to the breakout rooms and have the first class and introduction and all that. I mean, how innovation should play a role in this. But I'm just asking, and the same questions I'm asking you are the ones that I am asking myself, right? But we all need to think about this, okay? When students make mistakes while speaking, what do you usually correct first? Meaning, form of confidence, right? Are you the one, or am I the one who jumps into correction without letting the student finish, which causes, great frustrations and all that? Or am I ready to listen? What is the purpose of the activity? Is that a correction activity in which I am just trying to catch mistakes just to give feedback? Or maybe am I working on fluency, and in that moment I can let the student produce and produce and produce, and later on I can, in a different way, write down notes that I can even share. In general, I will tell you what I do when I share feedback in general terms. But what am I doing? Am I just like the judge? Am I the one who the only one who knows, right? But how am I dealing with mistakes when they are there? Mistakes are great opportunities for learning. And you know what? We'll talk about the purpose of learning a language or speaking a language. Some students think or believe, as far as I know, with what they have shared, that they come to class because they need to speak as an American or as a British or I don't know, as a Jamaican, because that's why they are here, because they need to find a job and they need to speak perfectly. And that is one of the reasons that makes students refrain from producing, right? So are they here for that purpose? Are we aware that speaking a language does not only involve to speak it in such an acceptable way that it gets closer to the way a native speaker does, because not even my native speakers speak perfectly. I mean, if you listen to me speaking Spanish, maybe a Spanish teacher will be correcting me 24/7, right? So, or is it a chance to set a communication process that student could take advantage of? How many students have you seen that they do communicate even though they make mistakes or mistakes are there, right? Something that we can, as a compliment word, or maybe they will leave the class. What do we want? Students who will never communicate because they don't do it perfectly? Or do we want students who will be able to assist a tourist on Central Avenue in an emergency? Okay, sometimes we forget that communicate that speaking the language does not only have the purpose of speak. I mean, of course, if we are going to pronounce R, I mean, we can have a different sound. I mean, help them like R, not ash, right? Those are things, basic things, and we need to support them in the learning process and yeah, and try to have them improve, of course, right? But you know what? There are times in which students start communicating even with me with mistakes. I know people who live in the States, of course. I don't know if they have attended school, but they do communicate perfectly and they have successful lives with mistakes. So I'm not justifying the presence or justifying mistakes. I mean, you have the chance to correct, but once I was going to Mexico City on the bus, there was somebody who got on the bus. This person didn't didn't worry about what he was saying. But you know what? Of course, the first of all, I was not a teacher sitting next to him. I was Manuel. That was it, of course. But when I heard the conversation, because it was for the whole class, right? Everybody knew what he was talking about. I got mistakes, of course, yeah. And the typical mistakes, third person singular and all that. But you know what? I had never seen such a successful conversation in a person who took the bus, and it took about 2 hours. I listened to English for about 2 hours, of course, with mistakes. So, in a balance, mistakes, I mean, not only speaking, but feeling, I don't know, excited about the message. And the other one was a native, I guess. And the other person got the message. So, what happened with this person when he learned? Was he banned for the mistakes he made, or was he allowed to even making mistakes and correcting them? Did the teachers let him speak? So let's think about that without justifying mistakes, which in our case is a process that we still need to work on. What do you believe is the main reason for some students? I mean, some students remain silent in class. There might be many, as I told you, we are not psychologists, I'm not a therapist, but we should be leaders. And a leader gets involved in what's going on in the class, in the environment, in the different situations. I mean, I'm not having the consultation process every single day, and then you will have you have to come here and we have to go with individual conversation before the class. We don't even have the time for planning, but something is happening there. What about silence? It could be on the student's side, but do we ask if silence is on my side? Am I going too fast? Even speed. I mean, let's go and open our minds and have them send us feedback. Okay, the class is yours, as I wrote in a comment slide. Okay, am I going too fast? How do you feel among students, and now especially with cameras off, which is like something quite normal. You don't know who's behind the. We've had experiences and I've had surprises, right? I once had a student who said, "Teacher, I'm really old. She was like 13, right? And she said, I decided to become, I don't know, a primary school teacher, but I haven't slept for a week. Really? Yeah. Because I thought it was going to be so terrible for me to be in English one because that's the language that I hate and this, and I thought it was going to be difficult. I mean, but who am I to increase, right, that condition for the student not to, I'm not going to give her the grade for free, right? Of course, that's not the type of teacher that I need to be or I want to be. But who am I in order to, I mean, who am I to block this process that she decided to learn and become a professional and go and serve society in a school, right? Let's go and see how you produce. Okay, I understand your situation. We'll do our best, and your classmates will support your learning. And then at the end, she said, I finally, right? I mean, so silence might tell us a lot. If your students could describe your classroom in one sentence related to speaking, what do you think they would say? Manuel's classroom, right? It's Manuel's class. The classroom is the building, and Manuel's class is the one who becomes a monologue because that's the only one who speaks. And sometimes we teachers, and I confess that we become monologues in class. I think that we are there just to show that we speak English and the whole class speaking, right? It's not ours, it's theirs. I'm just to facilitate. And that's something that we all usually forget. I mean, it's not a sin. It's something natural that comes here because we're so, I don't know, excited about doing and explaining, not only in English, in other classes. I teach business and I teach human resources and I teach other courses. And that's something that I have to have in mind. And it's not an English class, right? The class is not mine, right? I just provide part of it, the basic content for students to produce, and then the class is theirs. They need to even show what they've learned or that what they are acquiring is correct or that they are understanding it correctly. And then we need to go and add values and through discussion, see how that learning can be transferred to society, right? But at first, let's remember that the class is not mine. It's not I was not called to give a speech because students get bored when they have Manuel speak and that's it. I mean, I will show you a video. It's in Spanish later on that gives us some information about that just to reflect on. Well, not doing that. What is one habit in your teaching that might be limiting students' oral participation without you realizing it, right? What am I doing that I unconsciously don't know? That's why it is unconscious. That's limiting students. It's just questions, right? Maybe you can take notes or go tomorrow. You're having a cup of coffee. Yes. What is one habit that might be limiting my students' participation, and I haven't realized that it is what I am doing. Maybe I sit down when they speak, and maybe they want to go and see me around, and maybe I don't know. In the case of students who attend night school, sometimes they come from, of most of them come from work. I mean, so how do I take that into consideration? Because it's a different class. It's not the same to have an auto at 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. than having as a teenager at 7 o'clock in the morning. The energy, the environment, even breakfast. Maybe the person just left work late and is there trying to get ahead, and the other one has had breakfast. I mean, different conditions, different ways of analyzing and reflecting on what we do. Think of a moment when students spoke more than expected. What conditions made that possible? Well, in this case, I noticed that it was because of the topic. I brought a song. What did I do differently that made them speak more than expected? Great, right? We have all had those times too in class. It's not only like pointing negative things, which is not negative. What I'm talking about is reflections and opportunities that we all have to keep growing as teachers. If oral interaction truly became the center of your classroom, what do you need to change first? Your task, your feedback, or your role? Okay, if it became the focus of the class, right? Everybody concentrated on our interaction like this conversation classes that we have. what what would need to change first, right? Your tasks, my habits, my emotions, my gestures, I don't know, or my role. Am I judging, correcting everybody around? Am I congratulating people on their effort? What is my attitude towards what I see in a speaking class, right? Students do not learn to speak by listening alone. They learn to speak by being given permission, time, and safety to use their voice, right? It's not just that they are learning because they are listening to Manuel, I don't know, from 10 to 12 on Mondays because that's the English class. Is that mine? I already had the chance to learn and practice when I attended school and university. And if I want to keep learning, I mean, I should go and find native speakers, a club, a conversation club, or University Pro, or whatever video I have, because now I have thousands, I would say millions of resources that can help us keep learning. But the class is not mine, as I said, right? So they do not learn just because. Remember that the speak, I mean, by listening, it provides vocabulary, accent correction, and sometimes they doubt about words. I don't know if I go to business and the word inflation exists, which is true. Sometimes I doubt, okay, how do we say inflación in inglés? Because I'm taking a business course. Teacher, I don't know. That's a course in English, but it's, si yo digo inflación, am I making a mistake? Oh, but when I go and listen to a radio program where they have a podcast or something, and the expert says inflation, of course, I mean, it will validate my learning because I'm getting that from a native, and that's, remember, native speakers are not perfect speakers as it happens to us in Spanish, but there is a higher possibility to have that as a correct, right, pronunciation and the application of the word. So let's see what's going on with listening, which is also great, but we're talking about speaking, right? Strategies for interaction and oral fraction. What strategies could we think of, right, after going through these questions? And we'll get back to the questions later. It says the teacher's role in oral fraction is not to control language, but to create conditions where language can emerge naturally. Am I controlling? Am I the teacher? Am I just the licenciado? And I want people to call me Licenciado Manuel. We have a meeting tomorrow. I mean, that's great. That's our progress, and we could all be recognized by having the degree. But real national things. Am I a leader? Am I a facilitator? Okay, the teacher's role in oral production is not to control language. What is to control? Okay, correction without being objective. I mean, judging people. I mean, other things that we all know are not the best tools to keep improving learning, right? But to create conditions where language can emerge naturally. From the second sentence, we could all set a question. I mean, what are the conditions that I am creating in class? Could we go back on Monday or Tuesday or Friday or next week and start analyzing my class? Even the physical space. What could I have different here? Could I bring some, I don't know, posters or pictures or whatever to make people feel that this is an English class? You know what? The brain, it saves information and significant things and experiences. As I said, Roxana Jimenez, I once attended it was at the University of Costa Rica, it was a workshop or something. And I will never forget the famous professor that had that conference. It was about pronunciation. Yeah, we all know the alphabet, and I teach it, and we understand it, and we need to practice it, and when we spell on the phone. But I don't know. I still remember that it was hard for me to MN, right? And I remember that she dropped all the papers and things and pictures and with images related to pronunciation, right? The impact that it caused on Manuel makes me still go with MN. I tell students, do it here, do it in private, right? Don't go to the street and because people will get scared. But it makes us remember that we don't those lazy movements that sometimes, yeah, MN. And where does it come from? A professor who wrapped the walls full of papers that had to do with the context and the content. What are we doing with our physical space? I mean, we have a classroom, even online. I mean, but if you have a physical space, a classroom, what is that space? An invitation to feel like an immersion in the language, or just one more classroom? We all have an answer. Interaction is not only an activity at the end of the lesson, it is the medium through which learning happens, right? It's not like the final result, right? Through interaction, we produce learning, we produce knowledge, reflections, and we also change behavior. If we teach something in whichever topic we want to think of, and there are no changes in behavior, will probably, maybe it lacks objectives, planning, or something, but maybe it's not the right thing, right? So let's think about objectives, planning, and all that. I'll talk about that later. Every correction, choice a teacher makes sense message about what matters more: accuracy, confidence, or communication. What are we doing with correction? Okay, at least, okay, let's say if we are going to um, correct people, I don't know, on spelling. Okay, let's announce, let's create. Okay, I will focus on this and I will take this into consideration. Okay, when people are, there is something in Spanish that says something like, um, informed people become aligned people, right? They become part of my project when they are informed. The great thing of communicating things, right? A classroom that values silence over risk taking and intentionally teaches students that mistakes are more dangerous than not speaking, right? So let's think about what silence is doing there. There are times in which silence might be there, right? Somebody, I mean, the student doesn't know, or I mean, or I'm being a little bit aggressive with the speed, and that is level 1A, and I start speaking, and we all have days and days. I mean, there are days in which our language is rusty. We get blocked. I forget words, even my pronunciation. I don't know if if it's happened to you. In my case, it's happened to me. Remember that there is a mental connection with the topic, with the population that we're teaching to, with the community, with the emotions, with my feelings, right? There are days in which you teach even a basic course and you go with, yeah, hi, good morning. I mean, or you get blocked. I mean, but it's normal in everybody's language, even in Spanish, right? We'll get blocked sometimes. But what are we measuring? Speed? Are we measuring mistakes? Are we measuring grammar through spoken process? We can also check, include grammar. It doesn't have to do necessarily in the written form, right? I can go on with an activity. Okay, let's go with a listening activity, and I will read it with some mistakes, which is another technique. I've taken exams here, these famous exams that we all need to take to certificate my level, and it says, okay, this is the list of mistakes, write the correct option. So mistakes have that great value. So what about if I go with a speaking activity in which I read something aloud slowly, and they can also identify by listening and also give some feedback on what they heard, the mistake that they got, how hard it was for them to catch it by listening, but you have them speak, right? So the thing is that we can also combine speaking with other techniques or skills, in this case, grammar, learning, or even listening, right? The way a teacher speaks to students becomes the model for students will speak to each other, right? See the influence, see the impact, see the power we have, right? To use it in a good way. Our interaction flourishes when students feel seen as communicators, not evaluated as performers, right? Okay, of course, maybe you might be wondering, yes, Manuel, it sounds great, but we all have to paperwork and grades, and if the student doesn't produce, he or she fails. Yes, I know that, but and those are the factors that maybe we cannot have control of, but we can have control of our environment, of our class, resources. I mean, there are thousands of them. So what are we having in class? Evaluated performers by just giving people a grade, or communicators. Remember, students do not only learn a language to speak it perfectly. Some of them, all they need is to communicate. They need to survive. Of course, that's not the main goal that we should work on or reinforce. But if they need to communicate even with mistakes, they're making it. Maybe they need to travel it. Maybe they need to take a call. Later on, we can invite them and motivate them to keep learning and improving. But are we seeing them as communicators or as perfect speakers that not even we can perform like that, right? Teaching speaking is less about teaching words and more about teaching courage, right? It's an invitation, it's motivation. Okay, let's speak. I do make mistakes, and if you introduce the class by recognizing yours, that's sometimes a door that opens immediately. Yes, the teacher makes mistakes too. Yes, and you know what? That's not an invitation. That's an invitation or a motivation. It's a fact, right? I do take notes of my own mistakes, and then you know what? We'll have techniques, right? When I go with a wrong sentence or I don't know an error or grammar or pronunciation, you know what? That I implicitly go and reinforce that by repeating the word 2 or 3 times after the mistake, so we can provide or send the word back to students. It's the same when we teaching, when we learn sometimes some mistakes students make, which is when they become errors. You know that the difference between mistake and error. Error is when the person does not know, but a mistake is when I correct myself. Like the times when in Spanish, when we used to say, I guess it's been accepted, I guess. Imprimido, yes. Sorry, impreso, right? That's the same thing. I mean, we'll make mistakes in language, but the mistake is something natural. It's normal. I'm a human being because the brain has the same ability and capacity to do the self correction. Yeah, or yeah, my friend goes, right? When I hear goes immediately after saying go, I know that the student knows. But if the student keeps saying go, 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 he go, of course I can take notes and then give feedback. But you know what? When we don't necessarily have to say, of course, Juan, that's your no, never. I mean, I just go and provide additional examples with the corrected words. So that's a way in which we can return or send messages back so they all listen to the correct way. It's a way in which they implicitly get feedback when I paraphrase or return phrases back in the correct form, right? Interaction fails not because students lack language, but because the classroom lacks authentic purpose for communication. And I guess we're a team, right? I'm not the only one who knows, or I'm not the owner of the class. It's an environment that I need to uh, I would say even plan, right? But the thing is, what is the environment that we're having in class? Lack of purpose for communication? Is it like a routine? We'll fall into routines. Maybe that is not my day tomorrow, and that is a speaking activity, and we all have things to worry about. And yeah, I just want to leave. It's the one, I don't know, from 1 to 3 p.m. I'm full of work and things like that. Yeah, I know it all happens to it happens to all of us, or it's happened, right? But the thing is, that should be the exception, right? But what is the purpose of the class? What's happening there? What lacks in that class? Purpose, resources, motivation, emotions. We all might have or find answers to those questions. A teacher's pedagogical style can either open doors to student voices or quietly close them. Imagine we have that power, we have a key. We either open or close doors, right? I'm not I don't mean that we are responsible for negative things or that we are doing things incorrectly, right? The thing is, we're doing things great, right? I mean, I guess we're all human beings. We have a mission, we have a commitment, and we all love teaching. We're all there. But the thing is, we might fall into routines that could take students nowhere, right? But the thing is, how can we continuously reflect? Remember that we as beings are like, we live cycles. Maybe we just graduate and then I just go and the best class, but 2 years later, routines and the lesson plan, and you download it, or from the web, or you just copy paste the previous one, and sometimes you don't even change the date, and then you send the blank with, yeah, what is it? We're in 2026, and it says enero 2024. Come on, what's January 2024? Yeah. Sorry. I mean, what are we there in order to keep? Because, I mean, the more we produce, the better results the students will provide. And remember, they are changes came not only to teachers, they came to students, and they have different expectations, and they have technology, and they have songs, and they have cable TV. They have different things to expect, of course. So it's the same level that I should work on. Let's analyze. In my classroom, let me see. It says, let's go here. Just a second. In my classroom, just a second. Makes more. Who speaks more? The teacher or the students? And what does that reveal about my teaching style? What beliefs do I hold about students making mistakes while speaking, and how do those beliefs shape my teaching decisions? Okay, who speaks more, Manuel or the students? And what about my teaching style? Am I there increasing beliefs about people who speak terrible in a terrible way, or am I there to make decisions and motivate them to keep learning, speaking even with mistakes? The ones I can help them with, the ones I can correct, that's great. But the thing is, what am I doing there? Remember that I told you I brought questions, right? So let me see. How safe do my students feel when speaking English? And what concrete actions do I take to build that safety? I mean, let's see how safe they are. I don't know. I could talk about mine, and not even mine. They're not mine. I mean, my groups in my English classes, students feel safe because of this. And it doesn't necessarily remain along the quarter or the period. I mean, it could be the first month, and then I go down with the routine, and then I go up, or I remember that the class is not mine. I mean, I need to divide tasks. But the thing is, once we build safety, or what can we do to keep improving and building that in a better way, right? In a way. So how safe do my students feel? Or how safe did they feel in this morning, this morning's class, right? I had an activity, I brought a video, I had them discuss, I brought controversial questions to have the icebreakers to open the session. Okay, that's great. They said they felt safe, or they felt safe because I I told them again that we're not here to judge each other. That doesn't matter if Juancito comes from a bilingual school and the other one is almost under the desk because teacher, and I've lived that in real life situations, even in physical context or online. Teacher, please ignore me. Yes. What is the purpose of being here? Yes, I need to speak English, but please ignore me. Yeah, I mean, that that behavior is not only the student's responsibility. I have information. Once I am informed about the way the student feels, okay, what am I doing? Okay, let's see this. I mean, we all have different things on ways to handle that. But the thing is, yeah, but okay, let's deal. Well, I will tell you later some things that I do. I don't know if they are perfect, but those are things that sometimes work. When we compare that, not even in our native language, we are exempt of mistakes. I mean, there are techniques and things, but mainly human approaches, human beings sharing with other beings with a great purpose of learning or speaking English. Why do I highlight speaking? Because of the topic, but mainly why do people want to learn a language? They all need to speak. When you're learning English and you go to the market with your mom and you don't even know more than just good morning, and your mom says, "Hey, Manuel, go an American, go talk to him." Hey, what am I going to talk to him? Yeah, she needs to see Manuel speaking. That's like the real things that happen. But why do people register? And the famous publicity, speak English without grammar, and that's another topic that we're not going to get into today. But people are willing to speak, and if we block those intentions. Maybe we could cause, we could even cause them not to get back and try that again. So we have a great power by helping and supporting students when they want to speak. Let me see. How do I balance fluency and accuracy? And what message does the balance send to learners? Okay. Okay. What am I? Yeah. And be careful because sometimes we have surprises. Yes, teacher. Teacher, can you repeat that again? Maybe you learn through other methods that were American influence, and again and again. Teacher, but you know what? It says word reference. Go there online and it says again. Really? Oh my God, what am I doing? Promote, of course, I need to be aware of that or keep learning, but am I blocking people in the purpose of learning, or am I just there? If it is that purpose, we should go and set the conditions when we inform people, okay, this is going to be, I don't know, either a test or a practice, and we'll improve pronunciation and we will use digital tools. Okay, let's say the way you spell this, okay, tomato. Not to spell, but to pronounce, to spell. Sorry, to pronounce tomato. Okay, there might be another option. What option could that be? Yes, tomato. Okay, but we're informing them what we're working on. But we need to have a balance. Of course, I don't mean that we need to focus just on letting people speak the way they want because it could sound terrible, but it's a balance, right? So what are we doing in that balance to promote accuracy and speaking? Okay. In what ways does my feedback encourage students to keep speaking rather than retreat into silence? I still remember, Josue, maybe you didn't do it well for now. Maybe you can speak better next class, and maybe you can prepare. If you need help, let me see. I have, I don't know, I have a book, I have a video if you want to use it. What are we doing with motivation and with feedback? Because it's not only an academic thing, it's not only academic issues, but the thing is, it can be just emotions, psychological impacts that we have on students, because in a way, they might feel like the ones who are weak in the process, and that they see Manuel as the strong one. I'm not the strong one. I'm the one who needs to facilitate. At the same time, I need to keep learning. We're not native speakers, and if we're native speakers, we wouldn't be able to say that we know it all, right? If I go, even in Spanish, examples that I use, yes. Okay, let's go about the tools and see, and we have resources and dictionaries and visual dictionaries. You know what? We don't know it all. And sometimes it's like the shield that we have. It's not a shield, but it's like the understanding we share that we don't know it all as teachers. If we know it all, we would be perfect interpreters in medicine, in law. We don't know it all even in Spanish. If they ask me to go to a hardware store and ask me for the names of the tools, I just imagine that a native comes here and says, Manuel, because you are a Spanish speaker, I want you to help me and tell me everything. Yes, of course. Let me see. What do you need to know? Okay, I'm starting the hardware store, and tell me what are the names of all the tools that they sell. Oh my God. To know that, I should go and stay there for a month or two, or a year. I could go with martillo, serrucho, but I know them only even in English, in Spanish, right? When you get students to that level of, I would say, consciousness or being aware of that, sometimes they don't feel frustrated and they keep talking with the resources they have, but they go and find the rest. The thing is that when we measure speaking by having them produce perfect things, that I hope it does not happen, right? Okay, let me go and continue because we still have some things here. How often do I design speaking tasks with a communicative purpose beyond practicing English? Is it that I really want to get people into the topic to feel involved, or is it just a practice? Okay, what do I do with the rest of the class? Okay, a speaking activity, and I send them to the breakout rooms. I'm here just in case, and I visit them once, and that's it. Am I promoting communication? What can I consider when I want to produce I would say more original communication content. Um, let's consider real, or communicative purposes or content. Let's consider real life experiences. When you get them to think about things they know, sometimes they connect better with the practice. But if you ask them to practice conversation about, I don't know, about, um, let's see, um, a technical field that doesn't represent any interest to them, maybe, of course, knowing about that could be a class that I plan. We're gonna increase vocabulary in that field, but we do plan it, right? But if there is no purpose on the topic, sometimes they don't even though they want to speak, they don't have the content to speak. So once they have content and speak, we can take them to other levels and start searching and digging and getting into those other contents that they could speak about, right? What aspects of personality and teaching style directly influence student participation? It could be in both ways, right? My personality, what role is it playing there, and what is the student's personality? Of course, we need to know who is who, right? Shy students, maybe they are shy in English, math, and all that, but we could all have different approaches depending on the way people behave, and that's part of our mission as leaders, not only as teachers. I guess leadership in the educational field is something that we should keep working on. How the power dynamics in the classroom affect who speaks, who stays silent, and why. And power is not only the one that I have because I'm teacher, the one who they pay to teach the class, is sometimes the classmate who causes an impact on the rest of the class. We all have had those students, and maybe we have been one of those, right? The one who, the first day of classes, yes, my name is Manuel, I'm teacher, and I have 20 years, and I have, okay. And I live with my mom and my sister live in Guapiles. Okay, then I got I have years, and my sister live without years. And then you find somebody in class. Yes, teacher. My name is, I don't know, Roberto. I just graduated last year from bilingual school. And then you go. And that's a power that we need to have control of. I mean, one more student, how do we use that power in class? Do we convert that into an option to help other people, to help to support other students, classmates? Because we all have that power. And sometimes very shy people, they feel like intimidated by listening. So that's why we need to be in terms of not only planning the content, speaking, activity, producing approaches, but also understanding the whole thing. That's the role of a teacher. If my students describe my class in one sentence, would they say it is a place where voices grow or where they are judged? Okay, two different things, two extremes, right? Voices grow or voices are judged. Where are we? In the middle? In a very objective position? Are we on the other edge or limit in terms of judging? Who am I judging? Why am I judging? Who am I to become a judge? I guess I never study anything that has to do with law. I'm not the owner of the truth. I'm not the perfect speaker. I'm not the native Spanish speaker. I'm an English teacher who wants to keep working, learning, because that's the news. The news is that once we decided to get into this world, something that Roxana Jimenez didn't tell me when I was 13, it's an endless process, right? If I get an economy article in the afternoon, I will probably need the dictionary or I will not understand everything. So who am I there? Who am I to be there judging? The one who feels, let's be careful about that too. Interaction and oral production in the English classroom. Why oral interaction is not optional? Speaking is not a skill to be practiced later. It is the space where language becomes alive. Okay, alive. Okay, something that's active. It becomes active through speaking. When students interact, they are not only producing sounds, they are negotiating meaning, testifying hypothesis about language building confidence and identity as speakers. It's the same as reading. You know that when we read, when we go with the pre-reading, it has a purpose. Okay, it's really fast, but you need to get the name of the topic. You need to understand if you know about the content, and you need to ask questions about what it is about. It introduces the door to better comprehension in terms of reading. So the same thing with oral interaction, right? Speaking is not to be practiced later. It needs to be practiced there in our class. Let's do, okay. Now, if it is a grammar class, I know if maybe writing or maybe listening, we need to set conditions and divide. But I guess in every single class, there should be something about speaking. Remember, that's the skill that's mostly, I don't know, what people desire the most. So why not produce speaking, at least combine it in a writing, in a written class, I'm sorry, in a writing class, at least, I don't know, part of it. Of course, when we get to the speaking classes, I don't know if you have just speaking classes or you have them all combined in a single class, but speaking will provide students, increase students' motivation. Okay, then from controller, this role from controller to facilitator. In our fraction, the teacher is not the main speaker. The teacher is the architect of interaction, architect. Let's think about what an architect does, right? In a way, the architect does build too, right? Effective teachers design meaningful speaking opportunities. They step back to allow student voices to dominate, to observe, support, and intervene strategically. Okay, every minute the teacher speaks is a minute students lose the chance to speak. It matches with the class is not mine. Okay, of course, mine is part of the class, right? That's okay. I need to provide the conditions, the basic grammar, the video, the listening. Let's go. Let's practice, because that minute is not mine. The students in those cases, they lose the chance to speak. The teacher role, that's the facility. Okay, the hidden foundation of speaking. Students do not fear speaking. Okay, the psychological safety. That's quite important, right? You know what? There are students who leave the course, the second class, because they feel so bad because of psychological aspects. I'm not the therapist. I'm not a psychologist. It's that I don't have the time. I don't have the skills. I don't have the tools, but I have the chance to promote a safety space where they can feel accepted, even with mistakes. Of course, there are students who make mistakes that other students could consider, I mean, like terrible, or pronunciation things or grammar things, right? Or they mispronounce, or they miss whatever thing that is. It doesn't justify not to promote a very comfortable environment where they can feel and live safety in the class, right? A safe classroom treats mistakes as evidence of learning. Okay, teacher, es que yo soy muy malo en inglés y pues me la voy a jugar. Let me see. And then he comes or she comes with, okay, perfect. Let's go. Great. I mean, that grade is not a lie. I'm not lying, right? That grade is a key to motivation to have them keep on, I mean, I would say, believing in themselves, right? Why? Of course, we will have chances to correct things. They will have tests and exams. But if I go with after such a great effort, with a negative feedback, oh my God, I mean, it's like asking the student to leave the classroom. So, am I there to have students abandon the class? So we treat mistakes as evidence of learning values, effort over perfection, and normalizes hesitation and pauses and errors. All right, students speak more when they believe mistakes will not cost them their dignity. Right, mistakes. Okay, something important, by the way. Social studies class, math class, let's see, I don't know, music class, whatever class. But languages have a different, it's languages become something different, right? Languages have to do with the spoken part. And some people are really shy, not only about speaking a language in front of others or making mistakes, which is a barrier that they can't bring to class. But even in Spanish, I've seen very, I would say, um, what's the, I don't know the word, but that's really difficult situations people face or live when they have problems with public speaking because they need to be exposed, right? That becomes like sometimes a limitation in their professional progress. So English or languages in general, because they have to deal or they have to do or they deal with the spoken part, they become one of those fields that people feel really um, afraid of or shame or I don't know, embarrassed. So we need to understand that I am not in the social studies class. Maybe they behave similarly when they are asked to have a presentation in front of the class. But in terms of languages, something there increases because besides being exposed, it has to do with saying something that they can consider or others can judge as incorrect. So we need to increase the motivation for, in the case of those students who make mistakes as any human being or who feel like that, to make them feel that that is normal, that's natural. Okay, let's go on. Great. Okay, we made it. We achieved the goal today. We all spoke. I'm not saying that you spoke perfectly or regularly. I mean, I'm not giving you a grade, but we all spoke. Okay, and in that environment, those who speak maybe better, okay, but the ones who do not speak that in that way, they feel that they belong to the class and that they are all at the same level. So that could be a interaction versus okay, I don't see this, but anyway, it says not all speaking activities lead to interaction, right? True interaction requires. What does it require if we want to get back to the main concept and talk about interaction, which is not just speaking? A real purpose for communication, information gaps or opinions that matter, listening and responding, not memorizing and repeating. So it also has to do, it even has to do with planning, right? Am I planning to just have a conversation class or to have a class in which communication will be promoted through different techniques or methods, right? So let's not confuse speaking class with interaction. Interaction involves all elements that need to be considered for this purpose. Are my students speaking to communicate or speaking to complete an exercise? I don't know if it is just something, it's if it is something that I got or I noticed, I don't know if it is just me, but I've heard that when you have students at the beginning, or for example, in second, yeah, usually in the second level, they start introducing each other, and there's something that it's like an automatic response. When I listen to that, I wonder, is it an automatic response or is it because they feel it? We need to make people feel what they say, not only repeating as a script, because something, and you don't have the chance to tell me, but you might think about this. And they start, yes, good morning. Good morning, Michael. Good morning, Maria. How are you today? I'm fine. Thank you for asking. And in different courses, in different classes, the same, I would say, repetitive answer. It's okay. Thank you for asking, but I want them to feel it, right? Or is it that they just learn as an automatic complement to the famous response of, fine, and you, thank you for asking. I would like to know if they are really thanking the speaker for asking, or has it become something that was attached to the answer? So now I don't know, but I felt and seen and listened to that expression. But the thing is, maybe it doesn't have any sense. But the thing is, are we promoting communication or just speaking? How we correct shapes how students feel about speaking. Support feedback. It prioritizes meaning before form, delays correction during fluency activities, highlights what students do well, right? Look at the second one. It delays correction. Of course, at the end of the class, I can provide feedback, but if it is it a fluence activity that I start interrupting and judging and even demonstrating that my listening skills are not well developed, because once the student starts speaking, Manuel correcting and also interrupting, which might be unrespectful, right? So what are we doing with that correction that should be guided, should guide learners forward, not silence them, right? Um, when students are silent, the problem is rarely motivation. Rarely. It doesn't mean that it cannot be a motivation. It depends. The typical question, answer, it depends, right? Different people, different skills, different personalities, different interests, right? But it is often methodology. Silence can be caused by, can be caused. I don't say that it is always caused, which is different. By excessive teacher control, tasks with no emotional or communicative value, fear of evaluation rather than support. You see that sometimes you're teaching. It happened to me yesterday. I was really excited about a class that it had to do with, well, it was a reading comprehension class, but I was explaining and showing examples of this pre-reading part, and then you go and with the topic, and then you shoot the topic and then what it is about, and predicting. And by that time that it was just starting the class, I just got a message. Teacher, estoy preocupada. ¿Y cuándo es el examen? Okay, that's a message for me. What am I doing that I didn't provide the information or the conditions or whatever the course implies in terms of assessment, that student, instead of being there trying to understand what the pre-reading involves, the topic, the how much I know about the topic, and the questions I could ask to see how I get into that she was asking about the test. I mean, it happens to all of us. I'm not saying that my classes are the perfect classes. I'm just reflecting on how we can all improve our teaching style or techniques, right? And it's here. Next time I do it, but I don't know what happened. But she was asking by the time. So what is the what am I causing to lose that attention? Maybe, or maybe it's not on my side. She just decided. But those are things just to reflect about. The teacher modeling as the teacher as a model, right? Students don't learn from English from textbooks. They learn it from how we speak to them, the tone, respect, turn taking, curiosity, and openness and reflection. The way I interact with students teaches them how to interact in English, right? Roxana Jimenez. Many years ago, and she's still here, and she motivated me to go and register for the first course that I took in English. From performance to communication, when speaking feels like a test, students perform. When speaking feels like communication, students participate. Classrooms that promote oral production, they reduce pressure, encourage collaboration, and allow students to express identity and opinion reflection. And opinion, right? What's the reflection? Do my students speak to impress or to express, right? Do I to impress or to express, right? Because if I'm there to impress, that's something that might not be aligned with what I need to promote and provoke in the students' participation, right? Just questions. And we'll have the right to say yes. That's not a sin. It's just a reflection on how we could do it better. Designing tasks that invite real voices, right? Powerful speaking tasks. Connect to students' realities. I just said before, when you connect to students with real worlds, interests, they, conversation and speaking is, I would say that it is improved, right? Allow choice and personalization, require negotiation, not repetition, right? Now we are in the world of soft skills. How are we bringing soft skills into classroom, right? let's go and have oral communication, personal public speaking, leadership, customer service, emotional intelligence, the other one, assertiveness. I mean, there are thousands of resources that if they are there in primary school or high school, they will go somewhere or they belong to context where they already work. How about if we start combining real content into our English class so we're providing or doing two things at the same time? Besides practicing, we're providing them knowledge for other things that they will need, right? The language by itself, it's okay. What am I doing? Just repeating the same questions to promote speaking, or am I bringing vocabulary, glossary, or things that are aligned with real life needs, right? So that's a topic that could improve and motivate them a lot. Imagine a student understanding what emotional intelligence is, what to be assertive is, the importance of learning how to say no. I mean, if we bring those, and we don't need to be experts in business, we just go because a teacher studies, because a teacher prepares the material, a teacher goes and checks vocabulary before teaching. So it's nothing that we cannot understand. Those are really common things that are on the table today, and we can bring them to class and have students feel connected to reality. Teaching, speaking, and courage. Oral production is emotional. When we teach speaking, we teach students to take risks. Great, take risks. What risks could they take? Yeah, errors, mistakes, even errors. Remember the difference between error and mistake. Errors are there. Great, that's a great chance to take a chance to or opportunity to go and to all of them, go with that feedback. Okay, yes, third person singular, the famous third person singular that students go up to fourth, fifth level, and they still have the S. It lacks the S when they go and with the third. Oh, yeah, okay, let's take a chance to errors. Okay, trust themselves, believe their voice matters, and a classroom that develops speaking skills, a classroom that develops people. Imagine how profound, how deep that is. A classroom that develops speaking skills is a classroom that develops people. Imagine developing people. What are we here for? Just to teach the language? Some or many things could be done online. They sometimes do, right? Am I here to do it or develop people to make human beings feel part of society, learning about respect, values, ethics? I mean, why don't we consider those topics into our classes so we are doing both tasks, right? Helping them produce in English and also helping them grow. That's a need that society has, right? Therefore, why oral interaction is not optional. Speaking is not a skill to be practiced later. It's the space where language becomes alive, as we said. Just as recapping this, right? What role? And I have some questions based on the previous content. Pretty fast. I will go faster with the questions because I just want you to um, keep thinking, analyzing, reflecting, and that's my goal, and that will be what I think is the best we can all do to each other, right? What role does speaking let me see because I will currently what role does speaking currently play in my classroom? Central or secondary? What messages do my practices send about the importance of students' voices? If speaking disappeared from my class tomorrow, what learning would be lost? What kind of English users am I actually developing? Based on the content, I have some basic questions. It's just that I changed this just to see this, sorry. Okay, the teacher role from controller to facilitator, we already talked about this, meaningful speaking opportunities, and the questions that I have to reflect on this are these. When I speak less, what do I fear might happen? What do I gain when I control speaking? And what do students lose? All right, my role and students' role. What do I gain? What do I lose? What do students gain? Am I there to have students lose or to have students gain? I need to gain, but I gain by the time I provide them the chance to speak, right? What would happen if I trusted students with more silence and more space? What is one moment in my class where I could step back instead of stepping in? Next, okay. We already talked about the psychological safety, that emotional aspect that has to do with learning as a natural process. And then we go with some questions. How do students feel emotionally when they speak in my class? Is that the terror class? The horror class? What do my reactions teach students about risk and mistakes? Is my side that aggressive that I don't need to say a word so the student, so that's enough for a student to feel that he does not produce or didn't produce anything? What do my reactions? We all talk with our languages and emotions. What behaviors might I need to stop in order to create more safety? My behaviors, right? The students' behaviors are his or but mine, right? What routines could I introduce to make speaking feel less threatening? Let me go. Let me see if I can go here. Okay. Okay. We already talked about interaction, which is not speaking. Let me just go here. I'm talking, not the same thing, right? It says not all speaking activities lead to interaction. Remember, am I just speaking or interacting? That's something that I just needed to recap, and we go to the questions I have for this. I will just leave it this way. How much of my speaking practice is real communication? When students speak, are they influencing anyone? Are we provoking that they can, through their speech, influence other people, influence society? We don't know. Questions. What would change uh, if every speaking task requires listening and responding? How often do my students speak with each other instead of for me? Is it just a single speech? Yes, there. Hey, good morning, class. Good morning. I mean, interaction. It's not a speech. Speeches, sometimes it is senseless. Sometimes, depending on what am I measuring? What is the reason? I am not saying that it doesn't mean anything, but interaction is highly different than just um, the speech, right? And here we already talked about voices, not fear, the feedback that builds voices, not fear. The questions I have for this, when I correct, what am I prioritizing, accuracy or confidence? What do my students learn about speaking from my feedback style? Is my feedback style, besides the feedback, providing additional information and tools and websites and this and this and this? What kind of feedback encourage risk taking in my classroom? What would happen if I price interaction, not only correct language? Okay, correct language could be a possibility depending as a process, but interaction could become of something of more interest for students to take. We're about to the pedagogical self behind student silence. We already talked about excessive control and the questions I have. What might student silence be telling me about my teaching? They're telling me something. Nobody answers. Silence is a way of communicating something. Okay. They say that some silence is not innocent, right? Where might I be over directing or over correcting, leading or correcting? What am I doing there? Am I the judge or am I the leader? What assumptions do I make about silent students? How could I design or redesign tasks to invite voices instead of demanding them? Sit here like, okay, since I have no answers, okay, Jonathan, Andrea, what am I doing to invite them in a more natural way to produce? Because if I demand them to speak, they will just speak. If I invite them to speak, even though they make mistakes, where you set some rules, they will probably do it in a more natural way that they will reproduce later outside. They're not there just to speak in class. I guess they're learning to speak in the world. Is that something that we have forgotten? The teacher as a model language, we already talked about it. What questions it brings? How do I handle uncertainty when I speak English in class? Do I model hesitation, repair, or clarification, or only perfect speech, right? Not even, I guess there is no perfect teacher because there is no perfect human being. We can be better teachers by studying, learning, listening. Okay, I'm going to the market, I have my headphones on, and then I go with listening to, I don't know, I'm Catholic, and sometimes I listen to the mass in English and I get new words and this, and I didn't know that the word novena that I learned it in the mass. That's it. I mean, am I the one who can go and teach a class in history? No, because I would I should learn something about history, right? So it's not the perfect speech. Sometimes we become those who pretend to know, and students immediately notice that too. Okay, being humble is a great value that can help us in class because we are all in the learning process. I mean, doesn't mean that by having the degree, we already learn everything, as I said before. What interaction behaviors am I teaching without realizing it? What am I doing without knowing or unconsciously that reflects on behaviors? If students copied my way of speaking, what kind of communicators would they become? And that's true. Students copy things. You know what? When I was in primary school, my teacher used to write the letter E, not the common E that we write. She wrote it like in a capital letter way. And when I noticed, I started writing the letter E in a capital way style. Once she corrected me, but well, she was the one who, I mean, she didn't ask us to repeat it, but the way she wrote the E, I copied that because we copy things from teachers. Sometimes we don't know, we're like public people in class, right? So let's take advantage of that to motivate students or invite them to copy our speaking, maybe now our speaking style, or we all make mistakes. I would say our emotions in terms of providing environments to let them speak, right? I don't want them to speak like me. I want them to speak better than I do, right? But maybe if I open the environment or set the rules to have them believe in themselves, maybe they keep speaking, not in my class because they pass to another level, and to have them speak in the rest of the courses, right? We already talked about performance to communication. Okay, when speaking feels like a test, students perform. When speaking feels like communication, students participate. And what are the questions I have for this? When students speak, are they trying to be right or to be real? They're, you know what, when they try to be right, they start with self correction and judging themselves, and they set judgments against themselves. I mean, that's sort of when they are real, they feel free too. How am I promoting that? What signals in my class would turn speaking into a performance? How would I reduce evaluation and increase exploration? What would participation look like if fear were not present? If I could put that aside, I mean, away from here, how would that environment be in my class? Designing tasks that invite real voices. We already talked about this, realities, and the questions are, how would I want to speak in the class in the task? So how would I want to speak in the tasks I design? Where do my students have choice and where they have not? What real decisions do students make when they speak? What tasks have I used before and truly worked, and why? What's in my background experience that once worked and now I could bring them back to class? Teaching speaking is speaking courage, right? Risks, great. Let's take risks. Teacher, if I make mistakes, great. That's a great, I mean, if you make mistakes, okay, that's a source of learning. We'll grow from our mistakes in any field. Go ahead. Welcome. Thank you. I mean, the thank you, the honest and real thank you, because it's real, might cause an impact on students' motivation, interest, this fear of risk taking that could change his or her mind completely, right? And the questions that I have for this: what kind of speaking experience do my students Remember, after my class, what conference they live with? It's not only in class. What do they take? How do I make them feel when they leave, right? What fears do they still carry? What speaking identity am I helping them? Am I building? Am I helping them build? Sorry. Okay, but what is the confidence they leave the class with? How did they come? How did they leave, right? We could ask that question. What is my purpose? Okay, I'm receiving students in 1A and they feel that their language is rusty and they haven't taken an English class in years. Okay, how am I making them feel when they leave? What fears do they still carry? What speaking identity am I helping them build? And as a result, what do I need to stop doing? Where is my classroom today and where do I want to be? What footprint do I want to leave on my students? What fears do my students will carry? Just questions. We could stop here and start, brainstorming and having great conclusions that I'm sure you will get and I will get them too. Because teaching is a self-learning process. Preparing this and sharing this is also a message for me. What do I need to stop doing? As I said, why do I do things this way? What impact this has on my students? What am I maintaining out of habit? What I need to transform? Where is my classroom today in terms of oral production? Where am I? Where I would like my class to be? Where would I like it to be in 6 months? What do I need to stop doing to get there? What do I need to do differently? Okay, what resources do I have? What strengths and experience do I believe in? What resources could I take into consideration on the student's side? What small change could create the biggest impact? What kind of learning environment do I want to be known for? How how do I like to be, considered in the future, right? Not as a hero because I believe that I am the best teacher, but do I want to be recognized at least as someone who promoted personal growth, who worked on fears to let people grow not only in the English language, but maybe public speaking under that terrible exposure that people suffer sometimes. I help them with, I don't know. And there we go with I have 2 videos. This video is a little bit long, but I am not going to, I will play this one. And I have another one at the end. This one I will play it. It is in Spanish, but I consider this really interesting and valuable because it gives us information on how emotions work. And I want you to think about the purpose of the video is how you can relate or how can you relate the content into this speaking, specifically this speaking activity lecture. And the other one I will not play because it takes about 7 minutes, and I guess it is not correct, but it's not something that engages people. A 7-minute video, but I would like you to watch that later on because it will make you laugh, grow, and probably you've seen that already. But the ones who haven't, I would like to invite you to watch this later. I will give you the link or the name, and that's awesome. I've seen that about 1,000 times, I believe, and that gives me courage to go and teach. But let's go and watch this. Let me just see. Make sure that the volume is on. Let me see.
Aprender es un proceso que a nuestro cerebro se le da estupendamente, es lo que más le gusta al cerebro. Pero la neurociencia y todas las investigaciones recientes apuntan a que aprender y que todo el proceso cognitivo que sea con el aprendizaje es un binomio, donde la cognición y la emoción van juntas. Es una moneda de 2 caras, no van separadas. Antes no. Cuando no se conocía bien el funcionamiento del cerebro, cuando la neurociencia no estaba tan avanzada, se pensaba que aprender era un fenómeno solamente cognitivo, que era responsabilidad de nuestro cerebro nuevo, de nuestra corteza cerebral. Hoy se sabe que no. Que las emociones influyen en el que aprende y en el que enseña. Ojo, también. Por lo tanto, las emociones son las guardianas del aprendizaje. ¿Por qué? Porque son las responsables de la memoria. Lo que está claro es que solo nos acordamos lo que hemos aprendido con emoción o lo que hemos vivido en nuestra vida con alguna emoción. El cerebro nuestro es selectivo. Las emociones son el pegamento de los recuerdos. Y luego esos recuerdos pueden ser más positivos o más negativos. Pero si alguna persona no te ha dejado huella en tu vida, no te acuerdas de ella. No nos acordamos de todos los profesores. Solo nos acordamos de algunos, de los que o nos han dejado huella o cicatriz, los que nos han propiciado emociones que favorecen el aprendizaje o los que nos han provocado otras emociones que limitan el aprendizaje. Hay unas emociones que nos ayudan a aprender. La primera es la curiosidad, porque hace que el cerebro se expanda, preste atención, y la curiosidad tiene que luego ir acompañada del interés, que es ya la atención mantenida, ¿no? Pero la curiosidad, como que cuando algo nos llama la atención, cuando algo nos interesa, casi aprendemos solos, buscamos la información donde esté. La curiosidad, pero luego la confianza en uno mismo. Si uno confía en que tiene capacidad para aprender, va a aprender más. Se va a poner retos mucho más complejos, ¿no? Y a medida que va cumpliendo esos retos, su nivel de autoexigencia va a ser mayor. Pero también la confianza en los demás. Por eso el aprendizaje cooperativo es tan importante, porque sé que yo trabajo en un equipo donde todos los demás no son como yo, que a cada uno se le dan bien cosas diferentes, pero que entre todos, como dicen los japoneses, el equipo es más que la suma de sus miembros. El producto que sale de un equipo no es la suma de uno más uno más uno, no, es más exponencialmente. Por lo tanto, la confianza en los demás hace que yo sepa que si me equivoco, meto la pata, digo una respuesta incorrecta, no se van a reír de mí. Crear entornos seguros de confianza en el aula se sabe que potencia el aprendizaje. Aparte de eso, se ha demostrado que la calma, la tranquilidad, también potencia el aprendizaje, porque permite centrar la atención. Es decir, no hay miedo, no hay nada que me perturbe, estoy centrada, tranquila, por lo tanto, aprendo mejor, presto más atención, retengo en mi memoria mejor, más cosas, ¿no? Evidentemente, todo eso ayuda, pero también hay emociones que dificultan el aprendizaje. La primera, el miedo. Porque el miedo bloquea el acceso a la memoria. Si un alumno ha estudiado mucho, yo qué sé, para un examen, como su nivel de ansiedad se dispare, es que se bloquea y se puede quedar en blanco. Y es un drama, ¿no? Porque, a ver, el que no ha estudiado, que haga un mal examen, no es tanto drama, porque si no ha estudiado, pues no tiene mucho en la memoria, pero habiendo estudiado que fracases es un problema. Entonces, el miedo, la ansiedad y el estrés. Tenemos aulas estresadas, profesores estresados, alumnos estresados, bajo rendimiento. Automáticamente bajo rendimiento. Los problemas de ansiedad y de estrés están disparando el fracaso escolar, porque entran en un bucle de no sé, no puedo, no valgo, ¿y para qué me voy a esforzar? Entonces, esto es imposible para mí. Pero en cuanto la persona ya entra en calma, porque no olvidemos que las emociones son como vasos comunicantes. Si aumenta la calma, disminuye el estrés. Si aumenta la confianza, disminuye el miedo. Entonces, tenemos que generar emociones que favorezcan el aprendizaje. Otra de las emociones que limita muchísimo el aprendizaje es el aburrimiento. Si yo desconecto, si lo que están contando por aquí me entra y por aquí me sale, el cerebro no se queda con nada, porque no presto atención. Pero si aumento la curiosidad, disminuye el aburrimiento. Esto es así. Y otra emoción que yo no es que diga que perjudique el aprendizaje, sino que lo bloquea directamente, es la envidia, el aprendizaje competitivo, el estar pendiente de lo que hacen los demás, porque te estás comparando y eso te genera tal tensión que es imposible que te relajes y te centres en lo tuyo. Por lo tanto, lo importante es que el profesorado comprenda esta relación entre estados emocionales favorables al aprendizaje o estados emocionales desfavorables y sepa, y yo en los cursos que doy a profesores se lo enseño, sepan cómo cambiar un estado negativo por otro positivo. Entonces, generar entornos de aula emocionalmente saludables. ¿Para qué? Para que ellos se sientan mejor, para que den el resultado óptimo.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. It was just, it's a message, something that I wish I had that in English, but I couldn't find it in English, so that's why I shared it in Spanish. I'm about to finish and I want to share some of my experiences, which do not mean that they are necessarily, correct, but those are things that I've been considering as facts that have helped me improve my teaching skills and my teaching practice in terms of not only speaking, but yes, speaking and English in general, right? So you decide or analyze, if they are tools that might work, or I know that you have yours and you have all you have great recommendations too as professionals in the language. But in my case, I will go quickly over this, and it says confidence. The first class I usually teach, I've started doing that in English, but sometimes I've done that in Spanish, depending on the context. If I have people who hate English and they just need to take the course at the university because they are not studying English because they want to learn it, I just open the first session in Spanish because it's our native language and we can connect better if we do it. But just to set confidence, conditions. We're here to grow together. Don't worry about this. We will do our best. We are here to support each other. Because the syllabus has to be read and it's written in Spanish in some cases, so I take advantage of that. So confidence. They're coming here to. They're not coming to the farmers market. They are not coming to a social studies class. They are not coming to listen to a concert. They are coming to be part of the class, and their fear is to be exposed, as the cases or the first one that I just shared. Sometimes they feel that they come to the most terrible class ever. So once they return, I've asked them and they feel, well, teacher, I could breathe, because it was like, okay, confidence, the value of mistakes. We all make mistakes, and I guess we should enjoy the advantage of correcting ourselves and taking mistakes into account as sources of learning. The class is not mine, right? I used to remember a coordinator that I have in a school that I work in when I work in Costa Rica, and she said, Manuel, student center. And then I added, the class is not mine. Yes, student center doesn't mean that I am the owner of the class. It's not my class. They come here to speak. That's the only space they have, even though they have cable and all that. But that's the time they have to practice. Everybody is at the same level. I do this when that we don't, in some cases, we don't necessarily have the same levels, right? Or students don't take the proficiency test. And then I have a bilingual student who, I don't know, stayed in London for a year versus a student who just tried the public school, and the teacher was away from school for 6 months. So imagine those levels. Okay, nobody, and that is true. Nobody knows more than anybody here. I don't either. We're going to build together. And I mentioned the thing is, we might have classmates who come from bilingual schools and they know, and okay, to these students, please, and I ask them to consider the ones who are with a lower skill, and I ask the lower skill students to give me a chance and be patient, because sometimes these students interact in the language. So I just try to balance that, and that environment has given me as a result, that people feel better in general, right? The natural process of learning. Remember that learning is a natural process, that it's not only um, it is acquire and learn, right? Remember the differences. We acquire our native language, and we learn the second language, even though there are some theories about second language acquisition, but I would say also second language learning. Acquisition is different. We had our mom, our aunt, my uncle, and they were correcting me and the colors. And yes, of course, we learn without grammar, but now we're adults and we need some tools. So there are some things to talk about it, that it's not the time to do it, but it's a natural process. And by saying natural, I fear mistakes are allowed. Objective and announced feedback. Listen, something that I know I do it the first day, right? And I let them know that it's on purpose not to start doing and repeating that clarification in every single class. I never, unless it is a test, right? I never write down the name of a person when the person makes a mistake or an error that I need to correct, right? And I really do it, and I tell them, I have no idea. I don't know who said that. I just, if I notice that somebody said, I don't know, and he go 20 times, or students in general say he go, I just write it down, but I never write down the name. And I tell them, I don't really, I'm not worried about the name. I'm worried about the feedback that I can take into account to how we all grow. So by the time you listen my correction, don't feel that that is nothing personal, or that that is personal, or don't feel that I am thinking about you. I don't even know. And that's true. I just take notes. And so when I announce that objective feedback, they feel that doesn't matter who did it or who said that. I'm just providing corrections in general. We all grow, and that's sometimes, of course, there are individual cases or especially tests, but that's different. Digital tools, I use them just to compare accents, speaking correctly. As I said, yes, how do you say this word? Tomato, yeah, tomato, tomato. What about if you go to the market this afternoon in Cartago and you find somebody saying tomato? No, teacher. Okay, it exists because we have different accents. Now we have a not a globalized, but a universal context where we can now have access. I mean, you don't even need to travel. You can go. I know how they say again and again, and butter and bata, and British and Jamaica. I like this website, which is word reference, because it does not only give you the definition, but also different accents. So it makes students understand that they are learning also the academic process, because we all have informal language. And I talk about informal language, which is not a sin, but I let them know that it exists, as we do have it in Spanish. Communicating versus speaking correctly, which is the question I make, or something that I emphasize. We are here to communicate too, not only to speak, let's say, correctly, because they wish they could speak as a native. And okay, that's something that we can get closer to. But I guess I will never speak as a native because I was not born there, and natural things and abilities and all that. So I could improve that, go to London and get a PhD in English. I will improve my fluency in grammar and pronunciation and the mistakes that I have here, even here, right? But it doesn't mean that I will acquire. Yes, we can improve uh, accents, but something that makes them feel like they're normal, right? The translation process, that's an issue. Remember that there are some different things about translation, and some schools say it's prohibited. You can never translate. Okay, translation is normal, and let's not fall into, I don't know, ignorance that students don't translate. Just motivate them to see the translation process, especially in the first levels, as something normal, but invite them to start thinking, and invite them to, I don't know, to congratulate themselves by the time they go home and they start thinking that they need to stop and buy butter or milk instead of, okay, because it's normal. Students will do it anyway, right? It's not that I am promoting it. It's not that I am doing a class in Spanish, but if you ask them not to do it, they will mentally do it. What is the first message that come to their minds when they see, yes, and I live in Mexico. Yes, teacher, and I prove that, right? Actualmente, yeah, of course. And why? Because the first language was acquired. So it's an automatic comparison. It's like a filter. There's no way that a person, as far as I know, can learn another language without taking into consideration why. Why? Because it's the immediate tool that the person has, right? We can work on inviting them or teachers, in order not to translate, to show them with gestures, or let's not say abogado, let's say the name of somebody who is a lawyer, and so we avoid saying abogado, right? We could consider that as part of our creativity. And then continuous improvement. There's no way, as I said at the beginning, I'm a student, and that's true, right? That's true. I'm a student. I'm starting another program in May. They said, they called me. It's going to be in May, translation and this and courses. And I go to bed and listen to the BBC or listen to the business radio, pro, whatever, or the Catholic station. I need to keep improving. I need to keep planning and checking content, checking vocabulary. There are words that we sometimes we don't know, or we have just forgotten. So being a teacher implies being continuous or a permanent student, I would say, we are students forever. There is no way that we can consider teachers without being students because knowledge is endless. There are changes, words. I mean, as any language, there are words that go out and in. That's it. Always having a plan. It's terrible. It doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't have to be the perfect plan. At least write down the sequence that you will have, the content, the balance, the activities. Nothing worse than teaching a class without a plan. You improvise and students will know and have sufficient and additional resources. Okay, it's better when you have time in terms of more activities than resources. There's nothing more terrible, and maybe you know that, than having no material to teach a class, but having sufficient time, right? I'd rather have sufficient resources and leaving things for next class instead of suffering what it is to improvise. And I guess that's this is the video that I would like you to watch. I really recommend this because you'll probably have seen this or watched this, but if you haven't, every kid needs a champion. Rita Pearson, right? It's awesome. Just go and watch it, and you will both enjoy and learn how motivation increases by listening to her. It's awesome. And by sharing that video, I just want to go with some reflections. Speaking does not, let me see. Growing from pressure, it grows from permission. Confidence is nothing, is not something students bring to class. It is something we help them build day by day, task by task, interaction by interaction. The question is not whether students can speak. What kind of speaking classrooms are we intentionally creating? What kind of voices are we allowing to emerge? Confidence is not something that they bring to class. It is something that we help them build. And by saying that, I just want to thank you. And well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you to the Ministerio de Educación Pública because of these great opportunities that we all have to grow together. I'm not the expert, I'm one more student. Believe me that after sharing this, I will have to go and check how my classes are and what am I doing with the content, with the resources and the balance and all that. Because when we teach, we grow, but at the same time, we have the commitment to keep improving, right? I need to go and improve as any other teacher. Tomorrow I have a class at 8 and another class at 6. Monday evening I have another class for teachers who are taking their major in conversation projects and things. I need to go and think something differently for them during the break. I mean, during the weekend, all right? Thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure.
Many thanks to our speaker for the valuable ideas and insights shared throughout this session. At this time, we will provide 5 minutes for participants to share comments and reflections through the chat. Thank you very much for your comments and reflections, guest speaker and dear teachers. Before we conclude, we would like to sincerely thank all officials from the Ministry of Public Education who joined us for this webinar. We would also like to kindly remind you of the importance of completing the attendance register, whose link is available in the chat. This registration is an essential requirement for IDP Udlaelao Game Solano to be able to issue the digital certificate of participation for each professional development activity carried out during Continuing Education February 2026. For this reason, we kindly ask each of you to complete through the link provided both the attendance register and the corresponding evaluation. Please remember that this webinar will be available on the IDP YouTube channel. And we also encourage you to visit the Continuing Education website for additional information and resources. Well, this brings us to the closing of our activity. Once again, thank you very much for the participation, and we wish you a wonderful rest of the evening.